Schoolboy, who murdered his teacher during a Spanish class, plotted to stab his head of year in the throat and knife a pregnant teacher in the stomach to kill her unborn baby. Pulp Fiction-obsessed Will Cornick, now 19, is serving a minimum 20-year sentence for stabbing Ann Maguire during a Spanish lesson at Corpus Christi Catholic College in Leeds, West Yorkshire in 2014. Her family hope a full inquest into her death will reveal details about the lead-up to her death with a view to preventing similar school attacks in the future. But the killer's father, Ian Cornick, insists his son very much regrets what he did and is desperate to find a route to get better. Wakefield Coroner's Court heard Cornick showed fellow pupils a 13-inch-long knife and boasted of his plot to attack Mrs. Maguire before he stabbed her 8 times during her Spanish class. Mrs. Maguire was stabbed to death by 15-year-old Will Cornick during a Spanish lesson in 2014. An inquest jury heard that Cornick, who was 15 when he murdered Mrs. Maguire, 61, at the college on Monday, April 28, 2014, intended to go on to stab pregnant teacher Sinead Miley, right, in the stomach to kill the baby and stabbed head of year Andrew Kellett in the throat. Sheila Connor, left, and Denise Courtney, right, and Maguire's sisters arrive at court. He also pulled out a bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey, which was alongside the kitchen knife in his red No Fear rucksack, and said it's like a party. An inquest jury heard that Cornick, who was 15 when he murdered Mrs. Maguire, 61, at the college on Monday, April 28, 2014, intended to go on to stab pregnant teacher Sinead Miley in the stomach to kill the baby and stab head of year Andrew Kellett in the throat. Despite more than 10 students knowing Cornick was armed and had alcohol, none told teachers, either fearing Cornick would harm them or believing the threats to be a joke. None of the pupils can be named and must be identified by their initials. KK sat next to Cornick in English, the first lesson of the day. He had heard Cornick was carrying a knife and wanted to see for himself. He showed me the knife and he smiled and pulled out a bottle of Jack Daniel's and said it's like a party drink, said KK. He was saying how he was going to stab Mrs. Maguire and go on and kill Mr. Kellett and attack Miss Miley as well. He said he knew how to do it because he had been studying the human body. HED looked at the human body and how to kill people fast so he could go from Mrs. Maguire to Miss Miley and Mr. Kellett. And Maguire's husband Don Maguire, left, and Stephen Moat, head teacher, and teacher Andrew Kellett, right, arrive at court today. Don and Emma Maguire, the husband and daughter of murdered teacher Ann Maguire, at Wakefield Coroner's Court to hear the inquest into her death yesterday. Denise Courtney, Mrs. Maguire's sister, is also attending the inquest. In a TV interview this weekend she said she had lost her best friend and confidant when her sister was killed. He was going to stab Miss Miley in the stomach because she was pregnant and wanted to kill the baby instead of her, and stab Mr. Kellett in the throat because he wanted to go to prison. Emma Conway, who taught Will Cornick art and design for 3 years, until the murder on the 28th of April, gave her evidence via Skype link from Northern Ireland.